Hey, what's up everybody? It's Flux with fluxwithit.com, and today we're talking about UVI's BeatHawk. BeatHawk is an awesome little sequencer and sampler app that's right inside your iPad that you can quickly and intuitively get your ideas down. I'm going to show you how it works. I'm going to create a beat on it. I'll show you how it interacts with the other gear in the studio, and at the end I'll give you my thoughts on it. Now, we're going to dive right in here. The key factor about the BeatHawk is just that the workflow is super fast and intuitive. So on the left-hand side, we've got pad, which lets us get to our 16 pads, volume, which lets us do 16 velocity layers, pitch, which allows us to play samples up and down, okay, mute, which lets us pad mute. We've got erase so that we can erase pads, select so that we can select pads without making any noise, and then repeat, which is like a note roll. Then we have our undo, our quantize, which we can turn on and off. We can also select our grid to quantize too. That also affects your repeat. We have groove, which is our swing. We've got a tap tempo, or you can scroll up and down your tempo over here. So if we want to kind of bring it around, we could just touch it and move it. Standard transport control along the bottom. Along the top here is our pattern length. We've got our browser up here. We've got our song browser here, and volume level. We can go between track or your full pattern. This is basically where you're going to be doing your sequencing at. You can adjust the pattern length over here. You can clear a pattern. You can copy and paste them. And that will remember your track mutes as well, which is very nice. We can do editing. We have our ADSR. We can record samples, and then we can adjust our samples inside of here. You can also turn on time stretching in this window as well. So jumping right into this, I'm going to show you that when you're editing samples, you can adjust your gain level, your panning, your pitch. You've got a high and low pass filter with set resonance. You can't really adjust the resonance on there, but you do have your reverb and your delay. Now, to get into reverb and delay settings a little bit deeper, you know, aside from just amount, you want to touch up here and go to preferences, and then it will show you your effects over here. Now you'll notice I have MIDI input is selected. That means that whenever I use an external controller, it will automatically jump to that pad. That's very handy when you're building your kits and jumping around. You might want to turn that off if you want to play a sound and you know, play a sound from a keyboard while doing some finger drumming or something. Let's also take a look at how we can load samples in as well. So let's say we don't want to use this snare. We can go into our browser, and UVI has, you know, allotted a generous amount of snares in here. You can go through and so we can go through and check out the sounds this way, and they're all laid out in a nice way. There's also drum loops in here. And then we have instruments as well, so we can and you can dive in like that. Now another thing that you can do is you can actually use audio copy and paste to drop your own samples in here. Now I've gone ahead and just pasted a few samples in here, and so I like that snare. That snare is from Drum Potion Volume 2 from Flux with It. So I'm going to use that one and hit load. Now it's loaded. Let's say I want to change that kick. Browser. I'm going to go back to my own personal user library. Okay, and that's from Drum Potion Volume 2 as well. I'm going to use that. Okay. Let's say I want to use a different instrument here. Now what I've done is I'm going to go back to my browser, user library, and I can, let's say I have a little thumb piano that I sampled. I'm going to load that up. That's also in Drum Potion. And you'll see that the pitch is very low right now. So when I touch this, but if I bring this up to 0, now what I can do is I can touch pitch and I can play that sample. And when it's also in pitch mode, I can use my MIDI controller down here. Now I've set my MIDI controller up. So you can play your sounds out simply like that. And of course you can adjust gain. And I've got a little delay on here. Let's put some reverb. And we can adjust the ADSR in here. Very nice. Now let's get into some aspects of making a beat on this. We're going to go ahead and I want that to be a one shot. And this one I'm going to take ADSR and just set the release up higher. And we'll give it a little bit more reverb. And say we want to play this from other drum pads aside from here. Now these drum pads work just great. Okay, but if you want to use, I'm going to just change some of these drums around. You also get the EDM factory and you get the urban factory, which is great. So I'm going to just grab some hi-hats here. And you can also use the cell selection over here to quickly load up different sounds. We're going to go to open. Now I have this, all I had to do to get this to work with Maschine is just very simply set my octave up. So it starts at C5 and goes to up here to D sharp 6. So that's my 16 pads right there. And really no latency to speak of. Let's pitch that up. Now, you can easily set your choke groups just by selecting what choke group you want and then touching the pads that you want and putting them on the same choke group. So, So that works very well with an external controller. Let's go ahead and let's say we want to change this, and I'm going to sample up a sound from one of my hardware synths. I've got a mini brute sitting next to me, and I'm just going to sample a middle C note, and use that as an instrument. This is my mini brute, and I'll kind of mess with it a little bit and you'll hear it. Okay, that sounds good to me, so I'm going to use that sound. So all I'm going to do is hit record and then hit stop, and I can name it. We'll say Mini Brute 2. Save. And now I have that here, and we can edit that sample as well. We can get right in here, and you'll see how I left this blank space. So if I press a key now, it takes a while for it to play because of this gap. I can just slide that right in here, and now we're right up on there. So let's go back to edit. We'll set the ADSR, we'll give it a little bit more release, and I'm going to give it a little bit of delay. And let's go into pitch. And I can play that from my keys now, and I have a polyphonic Mini Brute now. Okay, so now we have all our pads laid out how we like, and we can go ahead and just create a track. Let's go ahead and do that now. Using select, I'm going to quietly select another pad, and then I'm going to put it into pitch mode. Now I'm going to add bass. Okay. Now I forgot to go into pitch mode, so I'm just going to hit undo. Delay to the chords. I'm going to affect the length of the delay. Now when you see this trap here, you can also have kits that are laid out across keys as well. So in that instance, if I go into pitch here, so it actually, while it looks like it's just one pad, it's actually a bunch of different instruments on one. now we have the basic ideas for this track down, and what we want to do is we want to sequence it all together. Now you can go into your patterns here, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy and paste a bunch of these patterns together. So here, paste, 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 paste. Okay, now when I go into song mode, now of course I could have created completely different patterns on here, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use track mutes to change up how this thing flows. So what I'll do, and of course you could do it with single patterns as well. I like using the numbers so that I can kind of keep track, a little bit better track of what I'm doing. You could have multiple different patterns doing different things. Let's see here. Just toss these up into the timeline. And once we have them in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, and I'm going to mute out everything except for, we'll do it just like this. And you can play it and kind of listen to what you're doing as well. So let's bring this back. And you can hear all the different changes that we have now that I've done these track mutes. And of course you can export, you can send it to your DAW, you can export individual tracks, you can just do a lot with this. Okay everybody, so we've gone through, we've checked out BeatHawk, we've seen how it works, and I'm just going to give you my thoughts on it real quick. I want to say that I think it's an excellent sketch app. It's just a great way to quickly get your ideas down. Very, very intuitive, very fast. Doesn't seem to really have that many hang-ups on it. That being said, there's a few things that I'd like to see improved. Choke groups is great, but I'd like to see pad stacking as well. Do it the exact same way, basically, and add a master and slave on there. Duplicating pads would be great. I'd also like to see a little bit of enhancements for slicing up samples. The overall workflow is great though. It just really functions well. The export is nice. The way you can copy sounds into it. I'd love to be able to rename my sounds and kind of keep them organized. That's something that I really hope comes in an update. But as a start, I gotta say that BeatHawk is fantastic. And even though there's apps that are deeper as far as what they can actually accomplish, BeatHawk is kind of the one that I'm using when it comes to this style of drum sequencer and sampler, because it's just so intuitive and just works the way that you want it to. There's no fumbling and bumbling with it. It'd be nice if there was like more pad banks in there, but for just laying out a sketch, you can really get your idea down with 16 pads just fine. If you're trying to create, use your iPad as all-in-one solution and just use BeatHawk to create finalized tracks, it gets a little tough at that point. But if you're using it as a sketch pad, in my opinion, it kind of blows everything else away because it just works so nicely. you know, overall, I'd say definitely check it out. The available sound packs that go along with it sound really great too. So I'm a fan, and I'm looking forward to see what else they do along with it. I would like to see some like multiple outputs for it. So if you're working with like audio bus, you could send out, you know, lots of different feeds to it. That would be really cool. But this is Flux of fluxwithit.com, playing with BeatHawk from UVI. Peace.